Hi there, Gabriel. My name is Ellen, and I'll be completing this essay correction for you. I apologize in the delay. I actually did a very long, a very extensive and detailed correction yesterday on your essays, but something happened with the file, and I only discovered it today. So we're going to redo this correction. I can tell you that yesterday when I did this, I liked it very, very much. So you're off to a great start. Um, anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at what you wrote. The first one is about schools being more entertaining, so let's see what you wrote here. Nowadays, as in almost any sector in the world, education has been facing radical changes in society. In that vein, I completely agree with the idea that education has to use entertainment tools to connect with today's students' needs, even though some people believe that is not the right mechanism to teach. This essay will discuss these issues using examples from the American Laboratory of Education and the British Department of Education to demonstrate points and support arguments. All right, so this is very good. You've got a couple of expressions here and some pieces of grammar that I really like. There are a couple of things that I would change. First of all, it doesn't really need to be quite so long. Your introduction has a couple of main roles that it needs to fill. The first role is to rephrase the topic. The second role is to present your position. Okay, so once you do those two things, you can essentially just be done with the introduction. Now, why should you do that? Because it's really worth your while to spend more time and more effort developing your body paragraphs. That's where you're really going to be judged for your development of your essay. So it's certainly worth your while to do that. Also, it's worth your while to save some time so that you can then correct your language, your grammar, your vocabulary in the entire essay. So really, there's no point in spending a whole ton of time on the introduction or writing like a very extensive piece of text there. So save it for elsewhere. Now, here, there was one grammar mistake I wanted to change. It's this right here. Even though is inappropriately used, it's used to connect two contrasting clauses. So two sentences essentially that are different from each other. It wouldn't be used here on its own. What you could have used here on its own is however. Okay, that does not need to connect to differing clauses. But if you're going to use although or even though, then it needs to connect back with that previous sentence, okay? So that would be a comma here, and then even though would be lowercase. Let's see. So yeah, it should read like this. I completely agree with the idea that education has to use entertainment tools to connect with today's students' needs, even though some people believe that it is not the right mechanism to teach. Now, I am not completely sold on this expression here. I feel like you're using some incorrect vocabulary. Is not the right mechanism to teach. It's a little awkward. So I'm wondering if you could have rephrased this in a different way. Okay, and the rest of it is fine. So let's move on. Firstly, I agree with the idea that schools have to add the concept of entertainment within their classes. This is because you don't want a comma here. It should just flow as one piece of text. This is because in a world full of well-designed ED distractions such as video games or social networks, the task of teaching is harder than ever. Hence, it is absolutely necessary to create new teaching strategies able to grab students, here you want an apostrophe after your S, in a meaningful way. For instance, research developed by the American Laboratory of Education, again, no comma, suggests that including methods like gamification increases. So, yeah, because it's let's see, that including, yeah, because your main noun here is including methods. It's one singular thing. Increases the rate of comprehension of content by 25%. So you had some word order problems here. Increase the rate, because you increase, then your object, and then go to the end of that clause, then you can put this by. So increase the rate of comprehension of content by 25% thanks to teaching through playing games. Therefore, the fact that classes become more fun, no comma, allows students to retain more knowledge. Again, it's allows because this is a singular thing. The fact that. It's one, singular. All right, let's move on. Secondly, it is also important to mention that some people believe the main focus is to educate, which is certainly true. However, it is also true that the educational system must find new ways to connect with the same. Thus, one of the main challenges schools are facing every day, no comma here, is coping with the disconnection with students, which certainly affects comprehension. In fact, a recent study developed by the British Department of Education demonstrates that institutions that remain using classic methods of teaching have lower levels of comprehension among their students. Therefore, it is clear that new teaching methods are required to improve this pattern and finally achieve the main goal of educating in a meaningful way. Okay, so I like this paragraph quite a bit. You did something rather challenging. You started off by saying that the opposite side is true, and then you started talking about how, there are other ways to do this. What I kind of wanted here is maybe bringing in this idea of entertainment in classrooms a little more. And what you could have done is you could have just thrown in a comparison in there somewhere. Like here, institutions that remain using classic methods of teaching have lower levels of comprehension among their students. In contrast, schools with entertainment built in have higher levels, etc., etc. And then the rest of it is fine. Let me get to your conclusion, and then I'll tell you what else I want to see here. So to conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly believe that education has to be open to incorporating new compelling methods such as entertaining classes to keep track of changes in society and complete its main purpose of educating new generations. Starting from this analysis, it is predicted that the educational system will be moving towards updated methods that take ideas from other sectors in order to improve the educational experience. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to fix that last sentence. It's fine. It's not that it's wrong. It's not like it has a grammatical error, but it is a little heavy. And what I mean is that you've got all of these structural words. You've got like a handful of prepositional phrases, and all these structural words really just make it heavy because they're not really content words, and it's just kind of long. And the word I like to use for this is clunky. So it doesn't really flow, on the tongue, or it doesn't flow with the eye either. So let me just kind of clean this up, show you how you can save some words and make it flow a little more nicely. So you could have gotten rid of this. So from this perspective, it is predicted that the educational system will move towards methods that take ideas from other sectors to improve the educational experience. And you can see it's a cleaner way of saying this. Did I take away some of these words? Yeah. Did those words really add any kind of depth or any meaning to this, or even advanced language? Not really. So you could safely get rid of them and you would be fine. But I feel like it makes a much cleaner sentence. Now, let me tell you one thing that I want to talk about in terms of coherence and cohesion. I love the fact that you decided to talk about what you think is wrong with this academics only perspective. I think that's a great way to do this. What I'm not really a huge fan of is the fact that you put it second. You see, this is your weak argument. This is your concession paragraph. That's what it's usually called. So when you analyze the side that you don't truly support, that's your concession paragraph. And concession paragraphs typically come first. So you've got your introduction, then the concession. and then you put the paragraph that you do support, because that's your strongest paragraph, and you want it to act like an anchor. You want to put it closer to your conclusion so that it remains fresher in the mind of the reader and is linked better to your conclusion. So I would have reorganized these. I would have put this first and then this second, and then you would have been okay. So I like a lot of what you wrote. Sure, there were a couple of little things that needed to be corrected, but very minimal things. Let's take a look now at your enjoyable activity with a child, better skills, and creativity. Let's see what you wrote here. Nowadays, there are many theories about which are the best strategies to stimulate children's cognitive development. Accordingly, some people say that doing meaningful activities is even more powerful than well-known actions like reading. In my humble opinion, I believe there are different stages of development. Each one has to be accomplished in due time. Hence, doing meaningful activities or reading are correct if done by the right or at the right stage is better here. This essay will discuss these issues using examples from Harvard University and the British Language Academy to demonstrate points and support arguments. All right, so this is really good. You don't have to make your opinion humble. Just say, in my opinion. This is a set expression and it's fine, but it's not really doing you any favors by saying that it's your humble opinion. Just get rid of it. It's not important to say that. And then what else? Maybe you could have possibly, let me think about this for a second, reduce this. The thing I'm concerned about is that this introduction is a little long. It's what I was saying in the previous paragraph as well. You don't need to spend so much time developing your introduction. Again, if you're writing this in 40 minutes and you have time to go over and review for mistakes and so forth, then great, it's fine. But most students, I find, don't have that time. So see where you can economize with some of the language here. I'm wondering if maybe here you could have done that, maybe written a little less, maybe. Okay, just like get rid of a line perhaps, something that simple really. But on the whole, I thought it was good. One thing that concerns me is that there's no mention of creativity here. You talked about cognitive development, and sure, that is a skill, but the essay asks you to talk about creativity as well. More specifically, look, it says develops better skill and more creativity. The fact is that they have separated creativity from the better skills, and from that you should understand that they definitely want you to spend some time talking about it. You shouldn't just kind of lump it together with other skills that children develop. So that's what that means. And it's an and here, it's not an or. So from that, you should take it away that you have to talk about it. It's not something optional. And then, of course, there's this comparison with reading. So all of those elements need to be included here and should certainly be included for a higher band score. So far, I noticed that you haven't mentioned anything about creativity. It is a little bit of a red flag for an examiner because that makes me wonder if perhaps you're not going to talk about it in your body paragraphs. That is one thing that examiners are looking at. The introduction should be a roadmap for what you're going to cover in your body paragraph. So we should have a good sense from your introduction what you're going to talk about. All right, let's see what you wrote in your body paragraphs then. Firstly, doing enjoyable activities is key to developing children's skills. You needed an S here. This is because you don't need a comma here. In the early stages of development, as a way to discover the world with an L, children, we don't use the word kids because it's informal. Children are more tuned in with activities that involve the exploration of their senses. Thus, throughout the process of gaining experiences, children are shaping their language, which finally becomes the outcome of the collection of experiences. In fact, there is research conducted by Harvard University that shows that nearly 80% of the human capacity to learn language is developed in the first years of life, between the age of 0 and 5 years old. Hence, it also mentions that this capacity is largely based on enjoyable experiences that shape children's points of view. Therefore, it is clear that there is no language acquisition possible without meaningful experiences or support. Okay, so what's the skill children are developing here? They're developing language skills for sure. And that's pretty much it. You're talking about let's see, experience shaping language, collection of experience, fine. So yeah, this is really about language acquisition. Okay, fine. So let's see what you wrote after that. Secondly, it is also important to mention that reading is a powerful tool as well. This is because it allows children to work out their ability to imagine through written words. However, reading has its place in advanced stages of development because it requires these early stages done. All right, that's a little awkward. It requires these early stages. How about, no, I know what you mean here. You mean it requires that these early stages are done. Essentially, you're using a reduced relative clause. I understand. It does feel a little awkward, though. Let's see. However, reading has its place in advanced stages of development because how about it presupposes that these early stages have been completed. That, I think, is maybe a more precise way to say what you're trying to say. Detail, but it's, since I see here that you're aiming for precision, I think that would have been more precise. Okay, maybe you agree. We can certainly discuss it. Let's see. For example, a study launched by the British Academy of Language established that children with a lack of meaningful, enjoyable experiences in the first part of their childhood had a lower range of communication skills by the age of 10. Okay. The research also mentioned that children, again that word, with proper 1P, early stimulation showed higher levels of reading comprehension. Therefore, it can be said that the best readers are the ones who received proper, with an R and 1P, stimulation in the early stages of growth. Okay. We're going to talk about this paragraph. I think it's really well written, but we're going to talk about something that's missing in just a minute. Let's read your conclusion first. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, comma there, right here, I firmly believe that doing enjoyable activities, especially in the first 5 years of life, is key to children's development, even more important than advanced skills such as reading. Personally, I believe that it is predicted that the role of preschool institutions has to take more protagonism than it has currently in children's education. All right, there's a little awkwardness here. Personally, I believe it is predicted. Well, why don't you just say, personally, I believe that the role of institutions has to take more protagonism. That would have made more sense. Okay, but it's strange to say, I believe it is predicted. It either is predicted or you believe something. So that was a little awkward for me. So just fix that a little bit. Now, on the whole, it was lovely, though. Now, let me tell you when I said I had a concern, let me tell you what my concern is. My first concern is exactly what I said with your other essay. I think that this is the weaker argument of the two. You're talking about reading, and that's fine, but you're talking about it like a concession. So you're saying, yeah, reading is important, it helps develop communication, etc., but, okay? So for that reason, this paragraph should have gone first. And then you should have had the paragraph about the enjoyable experiences. The bigger problem for me, though, is that there is little to no mention of creativity. As I said to you earlier, it was a red flag for me that I didn't see anything about creativity in your introduction. And here you just hinted at it, but it was just this once with this one word, the ability to imagine. There was absolutely no development about this whatsoever. And so that's a problem. Again, that's going to affect part of your task achievement because it says better skills and creativity than reading. So there really wasn't a lot here. What some people choose to do is they talk about the better skills and creativity here. What other people do is they talk about better skills here, but then when they talk about reading, they say, well, hey, reading helps creativity, so you need both of them to develop these skills. So you can do either way, okay? You can do either one, but you do certainly have to develop and spend some time talking about creativity, just as you do spending time with the better skills portion. This will have some effect, or this may have some effect on your task achievement score. Okay, however, on the whole, I think you've done a really lovely job here, really strong set. I'm excited about this. I'm curious to see how long these essays took you. I'm also curious to hear what your IELTS plans are, what your goals are, what score you need, so that we can help you and kind of focus the feedback appropriately so we can, get you to where you need to be. So my feedback might be a little different if I know you need a 7, but it might be, again, different if I know you need an 8. So that kind of information would be very helpful. All right, so let's talk about your next steps. Your next steps are to correct these essays and send them back to us. In your email, I also want to see your next set of essays, really just applying everything you've been learning. You should begin an error correction list with the mistakes and the corrected version next to those mistakes. And so let's move forward, okay? I'll be waiting for your next set, so good luck to you.